Hello everyone and welcome to PeopleCode event series by PeopleSoft channel. In today's episode, we are going to discuss the four save events in PeopleSoft. These are SaveEdit, SavePreChange, Workflow, and SavePostChange. In the previous episode, we discussed about the row actions event, row insert, and row delete. So if you would like to check the previous episode of this series, you can go to PeopleSoft channel and check the PeopleCode events tutorial series. In today's episode, we are going to discuss the PeopleCode events which are triggered on doing the save action. So without further delay, let us start the discussion. From the PeopleCode event flow diagram, we can see that the event flow starts from search init, then the user starts interacting with the component, and all these events are executed in sequence as per this diagram. For example, we can see that this is an employee component which consists of four pages such as employee, projects, address, and salary. So if a user wants to record an information for a new employee, he will fill all the details across these four pages. Now, let us say that user has filled the information and now he wants to save the entire transaction for this employee number 22. In that case, when he will click on the save button, then all the data for this component for this transaction will be saved into database. So when he clicks on the save button, these four PeopleCode events, SaveEdit, SavePreChange, Workflow, and SavePostChange are triggered. Let us understand how their sequence of execution works. So from this diagram, we can see that when a user clicks on save button, the first event which is triggered is called SaveEdit event. If it did not produce any error, then the execution moves to the next PeopleCode event, which is SavePreChange. Now, at any point of time, if there is any error, then the execution is halted at the current event and it does not move to the next event. For example, if there is any error in SavePreChange PeopleCode event, the execution will be halted here. On the other hand, if there is no error, then the execution will move to the next PeopleCode event, which is the workflow PeopleCode event. Now, once the workflow PeopleCode event has been completed, then the application processor prepares the insert, update, or delete statements that needs to be executed for a given transaction, and the application processor executes these insert, update, or delete statements. For example, if I'm trying to add a new employee with employee ID 22, then it is obvious that the application processor needs to execute the insert sequence with the new information. So that will be done at this stage. After that, there will be a save post change event will be executed. Again, if there is no error in this execution of SQL, then only it will proceed to the next event. Otherwise, the system will halt the execution here. If there is no error, save post change will be executed. And again, if there is no error in the people code present in save post change event, then finally the database commit will be executed. And then we can say that the data is now permanently available in the database system. At any point of time, if there is any error, then the entire transaction will be rolled back all the way up to before save edit event. This is an important point. We need to understand that if at any point of time before database commit, if there is any error in any of these people code event, then the changes will not be saved into the database. All right, now this is the flow of save events. Now let us see each event one by one. Save edit people code event is triggered when the user attempts to save the component. So as soon as he click on the save button, the first event which is triggered is the SaveEdit PeopleCode event, and this event is used to validate multiple fields of a component. So the name contains edit, and edit means validation. So we can use SaveEdit to validate multiple fields of a given component. Now, earlier we have seen a PeopleCode event called field edit, and that event is also used to validate fields in a given component. Now, what is the difference between field edit and save edit? So for each field, we have a field edit PeopleCode event available. That means we use field edit PeopleCode to write a validation logic only for a particular field. On the other hand, if we need a system where we want to validate multiple fields at once, in that case, we will use the SaveEdit PeopleCode event to validate multiple fields at once. Now, SaveEdit PeopleCode event is available in record fields and in component record level. In order to understand the behavior of SaveEdit event, let us write a PeopleCode with simple win message. Suppose we want to have a validation logic for this salary page, then let us write the PeopleCode in SaveEdit event of this salary record. So we will open the component. This is the employee component. Let us open the employee salary table. So this is the employee salary record, and let us write the PeopleCode in the SaveEdit event. Alright, so let us test the effect of this PeopleCode. So let us say we make the changes here, and if we try to save the transaction, we can see that the SaveEdit from employee's salary record has been executed. So this is the time at which the SaveEdit PeopleCode is executed. Now let us say we have a requirement that we have two fields on this salary page, mobile allowances and special allowances. Now both the fields are not required field, but we have a requirement that user should provide at least one of these two values. So if the user provides only mobile allowances or only special allowances or both, then these three are the valid case. But if user does not provide any of these allowances and he tries to save the transaction, then we should show him an error message. Alright, so let us see how we can use SaveEdit event for this kind of validation. So this is the PeopleCode for the validation of both the field, and as per our requirement, user should provide the value for at least one of the field. Now let us test the effect of this PeopleCode. Now suppose we provide a mobile allowances, and if we try to save the transaction, we are able to save it successfully. On the other hand, if we are providing the special allowances as well, then there is no issue in saving the transaction. However, if we do not provide any of these allowances and if we try to save the transaction, then we can see that the error message has been triggered as expected. So this is one of these validation scenario in which we have used SaveEdit event to validate two fields at the same time. Now there are some important points that needs to be considered with respect to SaveEdit PeopleCode events. The first point is that SaveEdit is not a field specific event. We have seen field edit, which is a field specific event. So each field will have its own field edit event where we can write the validation logic. However, SaveEdit is not the same case, and that is the reason we can use SaveEdit PeopleCode event when we have to validate multiple fields at once at the time of saving the transaction. Another important point is that SaveEdit event triggers the associated PeopleCode on every row of data in the component buffers except for those rows which are flagged as deleted. For example, we can see that on the projects page, we have this scroll area and we have 3 rows of data as of now. So suppose we write SaveEdit PeopleCode event in the component record of this employee projects table. Let us see an example. So we are selecting the employee project table, and in the SaveEdit event, let us write the PeopleCode. Now let us test the effect of this PeopleCode. Now if I try to save the transaction, then this is the PeopleCode from the project record for the first time, now for the second time, and now for the third time. And finally, the transaction has been saved. This is because we have 3 rows of data here, and that is the reason for each row in the transaction, the associated SaveEdit PeopleCode event is triggered. So this is all about the SaveEdit PeopleCode event. Let us move to the next event, which is SavePreChange. SavePreChange event is executed after SaveEdit event has been completed successfully, and we can use this PeopleCode event to write PeopleCode to modify the data one last time before the application processor updates the database. For example, let us say in the employee page, this is the information which the user has recorded. Now, if we click on the save button, then the information will be saved as it is. But let us say we have a requirement that we want to modify the information, and then we want to save the modified information into the database. In that case, we can write the respective logic in the SavePreChange event. The SavePreChange event is available in record field, component, and component record level. So let us see an example to understand the behavior of this event. Now on the employee page, let's say we have a requirement that based upon the gender, the prefix will be added to the employee name. For example, for male, instead of Samir, the database should save Mr. Samir, and for a female, let's say the name is Ria, it should save it as Miss Ria. So we do not want user to add Mr. or Miss prefix. We want the PeopleCode to modify the employee name based upon the gender. So let us say how we can use SavePreChange event for this use case. So let us open the employee component, and in the employee component, let's go to employee table and let us select the SavePreChange PeopleCode event. This is the PeopleCode for our requirement. Now let us test the effect of this PeopleCode. Now let us say we have provided the employee information and the employee name is Pravin Ranalkar. Now if we try to save the transaction, we can see that the name has been modified by adding a prefix. If we query the database, we can see the same information here. The prefix has been added to employee name. So this is one of the use case where we can use SavePreChange event to modify the data before the changes have been saved into the database. Another use case for SavePreChange is that generally there are some fields which are present in a particular PeopleSoft record, but those fields are not displayed on the front end page. For example, consider this salary. For this salary page, we have a record called PSEMP salary table. Now, if we query the table, we have a date time field, salary last updated date time. So these field will tell you when was the salary last updated. It will store the timestamp of the update. Now, this field is not present in the front end, and we have a requirement that we need to capture the exact date time when user is trying to make the change and save the transaction. So we will write the respective PeopleCode in the SavePreChange event. So let us go to salary table. So let us go to employee salary table, and in the save pre-change event, let us write the people code. So this is the people code for our requirement. Let us test the effect of this people code. So let us say we change the HRA from 12 to 13 and we save the transaction. Then we can see that the transaction has been saved. Now, if we query the database for this transaction in the salary table, we can see that we have captured the last date time update as required. This is one of the use case where we can use the save pre-change event. Now, let us move to the next people code event, which is workflow. Workflow people code event is triggered after save pre-change event completes successfully and before the DML statements, that is insert, update or delete, before these statements are executed. So we use workflow people code event to write people code related to business processes, such as trigger business process is one of the most commonly used functions in PeopleSoft system. So there are scenarios where we require approval. For example, if we are trying to make a change in the project information for an employee, then we may have a requirement that the approval processes should be triggered here. This project change might require approval from the manager or from the director. It might be a serial level of approval or parallel level of approval. So if that is the requirement, then we can use the workflow event in order to trigger those business processes. So trigger business process is one of the most commonly used people code function in order to trigger the workflow. And workflow people code event is available in record fields level and in component level. So we can use the official documentation for workflow people code event, and this will give us a very good idea on how to write the people code in order to trigger the business process. If we scroll down, we will have the syntax and some basic information on how to use the trigger business event process to trigger the approval workflow. And here are some sample code examples as well. So not every application will require us to write people code in workflow. Only those applications or those scenarios which requires the approval, we will use the workflow people code event to trigger the required process. So this is about the workflow people code event. Now let us move to the next people code event, which is SavePostChange. SavePostChange event is triggered after the workflow event completes successfully and the component processor has updated the database. So we saw that after the workflow event completes, the component processor executes the corresponding DML statements such as insert, update, or delete. After the execution has been completed, the save post change event is triggered. We use save post change event to write people code to update the tables which are not part of the current component. So apart from the current component, if we need to update any other table, in that case, we will use the save post change event to write the people code. And typically, this SQL execution is done by using the people code function called SQL exec. Save post change event is available in record field level, in component level, and in component record level. To understand the behavior of this event, let us see an example. Let us say that we have this salary page and we are maintaining a different record which is not part of this component. That record is called PS employee salary change table. So whenever the salary information has been updated, then those changes should be captured here, such as what is the employee ID, who is the OPR ID, who is updating, what is the new salary, and what is the last date time update. Now, we know that this record is not part of this component, and after the save transaction completed, we need to execute an insert SQL in order to record these changes into this record. So if we have such a requirement where we are updating a record apart from the current component, in that case, we can use the SavePostChange event to write the associated people code. So let us write the people code for this requirement. So let us open the component and let us go to SavePostChange event for this component. This is the people code for our requirement. Now let us test the effect of this people code. So if we go to salary page and if we change the salary from, let's say, 6,000 to 7,000, when we click on this save button, the transaction has been saved successfully. So if we query the table, we can see that the transaction has been captured here successfully. So if we make a change one more time, let us say the salary becomes 10,000. And if we query this record, then we can see that the transaction has been updated at this time. So this is one of the use case where we can use the save post change event, because in the real world scenario, we will have multiple situations where we need to update or insert or delete into any other PeopleSoft record which is not part of the current component. So there are a few important points with respect to save post change people code event. The first one is that an error or warning in save post change event causes a runtime error, and this is the reason that as a PeopleSoft developer, we should always avoid writing error or warning statements in this event. And the second important point is that never issue a SQL commit or a rollback statement manually within a SQL function in save post change event. And we should always let the component processor issue these SQL commands. This is because, as we have seen in this event flow diagram, once the save post change event completes successfully, then the component processor issues a database commit to the system. This is the reason why we should not manually issue a commit and a rollback statement, and we should let the component processor issue a commit or a rollback statement. So this is about the save post change people code event. Alright guys, that's it for today's episode. If you found this content helpful, then please like the video, and if you are interested into more such content, then please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.